What's up, everybody? It is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, which means mentally and physically I am at Friday. Okay, that's what that means. But we still have a show to get to, and a show we will do. First of all, like I said, happy Thanksgiving. Basically, it's Friday. And college football playoff rankings dropped last night. It was chaos in the middle. We will talk about that, break it down for you. Plus, we're gonna talk about Thanksgiving plates. Let's see if you can guess which one is mine on our blind plate test. All that and more coming up on GoJo Golic.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to GoJo and Golic. Michael Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Jesse Cofield with you. We're presented by Campbell's Chunky, the soup that eats like a meal, and we got a great show for you guys today. Make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review us, leave us a 5-star rating, and check us out here live Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings Network. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Fun one today. Our friend Nicole Auerbach going to join us in hour number 2. Look ahead to some of the rivalry weekend games in college football. React to a little bit of the college football playoff rankings, which we'll get to here. And Michael Penix Jr., the backup quarterback and first-round rookie draft pick of the Atlanta Falcons, going to join us in hour number 2 as well. Talk about a little bit of his rookie season and the outlook for the Falcons going forward here. Jesse mentioned it, though. It's foot in the parking lot day for everybody across this great nation who's got to go in and at least fake like they're going to work today. And that's what we're going to do our best to do here. Dad, you're a veteran of a lot of these. You understand that it really is about just getting across the finish line here before a lot of people are going home, getting and ready to travel. God bless and keep you if you've got to travel in the next couple of days to get wherever you're going for Thanksgiving. But the effort is at a minimum across offices everywhere. So just mind your business, keep your head low, put an earbud in, listen to us, and we're going to get through this together.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the show, it's about major headlines and having fun and goofing off and talking about food. That's pretty much it as far as our show is concerned. And as far as your work process, that's exactly right. Get to work, get your head down, look at the clock. When it's time to go, get the hell out. Leave early if you can. If the boss isn't around, maybe the boss left early. Maybe he didn't tell you. Maybe she didn't tell you. Maybe you can sneak out early. But everybody drive carefully, travel safely. That's a key. It's going to be, what they say, the biggest travel weekend of the year. So travel safely, get through it. What I didn't realize until, obviously, years ago, that this was the biggest, heading out night for young people.
Oh yeah.
That I did not know that this was a huge, and our kids home from school, that this was a huge bar night. I had no idea about that.
Yeah, it's a pretty big one here. It's my same bit of advice every year. People stay safe on this night too. And
yeah.
It's usually kids from college coming back from high school. It's a reminder, you and your ex haven't changed. Neither of you are any different right now. So rekindling this over the break is not going to end well for anybody. But no, it is a night where a lot of people, Jesse, do get it. I don't know, was that big where you were from here? I know that was kind of weird, didn't have a lot of options in the going out department in West Hartford, Connecticut, so it was one big watering hole you ended up at. I wasn't sure about anyone else.
Yeah, where I grew up in Alexandria, Virginia, in Old Town, there was a bar called O'Connell's, and everybody was at O'Connell's. So, I mean, just up until, like you said, it's mostly kids coming home from college or like freshly out of college. But if you were in that age range at all, you were at O'Connell's in Old Town, Alexandria, Virginia. And, you know, you were trying to mark yourself safe, like you said, from hooking up with your ex. And I mean, for the most part, people did not succeed at that.
Also, I was going to say, I would imagine alcohol played a big part in Old Flames hooking up again.
Oh, yeah.
But also, is it a big peeing contest? Like how well you're doing in college, or you're out of college and how well you got, you know?
Peeing?
Oh, pissing
Do you mean
contest,
pissing?
whatever you want to say. You know, I was trying not to use,
big
the
pee-pee
worst
contest.
word. Yeah, big pee-pee contest. Yeah, well, we're talking about kids, so yeah, big pee-pee contest. Yes, yes. Since I'm 61 and we're talking about, young 20-year-olds, it's a pee-pee contest.
Yeah, no,
Senior,
you're absolutely spot on, though. It was definitely like you were trying to look amazing because you wanted to be showing everybody that you were doing good. Yes, you're absolutely right.
It had big high school reunion vibes in that way, where you don't quite have that much time removed, but you got enough to want to show everybody that you're living right as you get ready for the other part of Thanksgiving, which is also coming back and having to battle through whatever now the version of your family that's coming together for this is. And everyone's got their own situations, everyone's got their own battle that they're fighting with this. But Dad, there is no doubt that finding your role and playing your part the right way when it comes to being involved in Thanksgiving dinner, are you one of the people that helps? Are you one of the people that entertains any of the kids in the family? Do you just stay out of the hell out of the way? You've got to know your role and you've got to play it very well in order to survive this.
Yeah, don't try and get out of your box, right? Right? Don't try and do something you're not used to doing. If you're not used to helping, you know what? You'll probably get in the way if you try and help. But I would normally say try and help a little bit. Clear your plate, clean up, straighten up, help. Try not to get in the way. But you're right, Mike. Know your role, especially in big gatherings. And those gatherings where you really don't know, very well some of the people, maybe it's a friend of a friend. Those can be awkward situations. Like I said, that's when I just unbuckle my pants and my belt and everybody leaves me alone. I found my niche. Get a spot on the couch, kind of spread out. So it's kind of like the plane. If you fly Southwest, you spread out in your plane in your seat, so you hope nobody sits next to you. Jesse, I know you don't know what this is about with Southwest, but you spread out so nobody sits next to you. So that's what you do. You get on the couch and you see if it's somebody you don't really want to talk to. Like I said, maybe I unzip the pants a little more, undo the belt, even more, and not let them, so they will not come and sit next to me. If it's someone I want next to me, I'll straighten up a little bit, make sure that seat is available next to me if it's somebody I want to talk to.
Better be careful with all the unzipping. You sound like you're having a pee-pee contest all of a sudden, and now things are going to get awkward at Thanksgiving. But you have the problem, too, because you're the branded football guy at Thanksgiving. Like, that is an important role of the guy who's going to sit around there and talk shop with some of the extended family or maybe friends or some significant others that are coming for the first time here. But you brought up an important part of this. Helping out in the kitchen, doing anything like that, 9 out of 10 times, especially if you're a guy, you're basically like male nipples. You're largely useless. So what you want to do is, and this is an old offensive line trick, on an interception, when you look at the fat guys on the field, you watch, they're going to try and get close to the ball, but making the play is probably not going to be their bag. You're really trying not to get hit out there. And so what you need to do is just be close enough to be in the frame. So when you go and click on the film the next day in the offensive line room, they see, hey, your jersey's in the frame. You're selling out. You're trying to help the team and do all that, when really you're just trying to get close enough and really not get blindsided by some linebacker who's been eyeing you all game. Same goes for the kitchen, Jesse. In my mind, you go in and you offer to help. Like Dad said, you clean the plate and you bring it over, and then they're going to shush you away and say, oh, no, I got this. Don't worry. And then you get the hell out of the way, but at least it's registered. Hey, this guy tried.
I was going to say, like, something that would be helpful for you to do is grab the plates off the table, bring them to the kitchen, because every man I know loads the dishwasher like a raccoon on crack. So you definitely just want to bring the plates to a place where somebody whose brain works properly can load them into the dishwasher in a way that will allow the dishwasher to clean the dishes. So I would say that's a good move.
That's the other thing that to go along those lines, even if you know how to load the dishwasher, don't do it well so you get shushed away.
Oh,
right?
yeah, willful
Act like
incompetence.
you're trying to do it,
a male
but
favorite.
But show some incompetence, yeah. And it's a guy, so that will be expected. So then you just go sit down, but it's remembered by the host, and they're filling your wine glass first when they going around trying to fill glasses. So, yeah, smart moves. Smart moves.
That's actually one of my favorite things is when, like, the boomer moms are like, they're like, did you see that GoJo brought his plate to the kitchen? Wow, guys like that, I mean, they do not come around very, you're like, what? That is literally, the bar is on the floor. The bar's on the floor for men. Okay.
And we somehow still trip over it almost daily. It's really incredible the coup that we've pulled off. And you can extend it to Thanksgiving. So everyone travel safely, do right by that. Like I said, we'll get to the plates in a little bit here on Thanksgiving, but it has that feeling where you're preparing for battle for some people this week. And that's before you get to the Black Friday shopping deals here. Let's prepare for battle with the college football playoff that we got last night. They got me, by the way. Those guys over at ESPN wrapping it around college basketball. I end up watching Duke and Kansas. It was an awesome game here. Hunter Dickinson kicking people in the face, pulling a Duke, playing against Duke and getting ejected and giving them a chance to come back and win it here so Cooper Flagg could go off in the second half, Dad. I know they got you too. They do it. I understand why they do it, and it works because it was a really compelling matchup and probably a Final Four preview.
Yeah, it definitely was. Duke, though, with a couple of turnovers late in this game that cost him the game. So a couple of losses for them early. But, yeah, it's smart programming. You know, if I'm going to wait for the college show, I might as well keep it on the same channel and just watch what's on, and that's a good basketball game.
Yeah, still working on the Cooper Flagg take right now, but a little suspect. 2 points in the first half, and then Hunter Dickinson goes out, and now all of a sudden Buddy's popping off in the second half here. Doesn't seem like behavior I want from the guy who's going to be the number one overall pick, but we got time for that. And instead, we got time to get to the college football playoff rankings from last night. Dad, largely unchanged, up top in the top four as we predicted. Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, and Penn State still. No one got as froggy, although Nicole Auerbach, who's coming up later, was one who thought, hey, maybe Notre Dame could jump over Penn State. We'll get her opinion as to why. But Notre Dame hanging out in the 5 spot, replacing that other team from Indiana and IU, followed by Miami, Georgia at number 7, Tennessee at number 8, and then SMU inside the top 10 at number 9, followed by that Indiana team fresh off a loss to Ohio State at 10, before you get to Boise State at 11 and Clemson at 12. So, Dad, Clemson now the third ACC team inside the top 12, but as we know with the bracket, the 5 highest ranked conference champions get that automatic bid. And so at this point, it would be number 16 Arizona State as the highest ranked next conference champion, in this case from the Big 12, that would then bump Clemson out of the college football playoff field in favor of Arizona State, who would get a seed. Remember, they would be a top 4 seed and get a bye at the beginning of this. And so, Dad, really, I didn't see anything all that surprising in this. I was curious how far IU was going to fall down, and 10 seems about right, given the fact that we had all of those upsets in the SEC that coincided with them losing in the biggest game of their season.
Yeah, that was a big thing of how far they fell, and could they potentially be in a position. Ward Manuel talking about how well the commissioner of the committee, talking about how well they played at times against Ohio State on the road. They still obviously dropped them, but kept them in, but dropped them far enough for the potential of maybe getting knocked out. And the team that I look at, Mike, that can upset the apple cart, like we said, already at 12, Clemson is in, but they're out because ASU would take that spot and be the 12 seed. The 1 through 4 seed would be Oregon, Texas, Miami, and Boise State. That would be 1 through 4. And so, and then Arizona State would be 12. So could another team get knocked out? And the way I could see that happening would be Texas A&M could upset the apple cart. Texas A&M is outside right now. They're sitting at 20. But if they beat Texas, they're in the SEC championship game against Georgia. Texas is not dropping out of the playoffs, right? They'd be out of the SEC championship game. They'd have 2 losses. They're at number 3. They're not dropping out of the playoffs. And then if somehow Texas A&M pulled off the upset on Georgia and won the SEC, they would be in it. Georgia would probably stay in it at 3. They would be the only 3-loss team in it, and then that would knock another team out of in the top 12 right now, possibly in Indiana. So that's really the only potential team outside the top 12 of maybe getting in with the possibility of winning the conference championship, because Ole Miss isn't getting in the championship game, Alabama's not getting in the championship game. It's either Texas or Texas A&M against Georgia.
The one other interesting part to me as how we jumble the teams that are on the edge, Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina, those 3-loss SEC teams. South Carolina's got a game against a top 12 ranked Clemson team coming up this week. They have one of the bigger matchups outside of Texas A&M of rivalry week coming up here. Now, it doesn't help Clemson for the ACC title game or anything like that and trying to get in there, but for South Carolina, if they win there, I have a feeling they would jump Alabama and Ole Miss, and then if any craziness went on, now you're knocking on the doorstep waiting to go. And we know they have a comment of, they played Alabama earlier in the year. It was a close game too, and it's one of those things where head-to-head, it matters, but only so much when you get to the end of the season. It's one of the data points there. So they're just interesting, but Dad, it's made far less interesting to your point, because we have one of the conference champions right now slated to be outside of the top 12. And so that changes the math for how we can talk about teams trying to push their way in as at-large bids at the end of the top 12. So you're absolutely right with that. And I think overall, I'm still most curious to see what the reaction is going to be like when that actually happens, how it softened the blow during these weeks that we're already preparing for it like that. And ESPN choosing to put the bracket up during the reveal like they've done was something I originally didn't agree with. But as it's gone along now, I do wonder if it's had that effect of, all right, when we finally get this on the final rankings day, we're going to be less stunned by it because we've been preparing for this all along, that one of these teams is going to come from outside and bump their way in. I don't know if that'll be a salve for any of the teams from the SEC or the Big Ten if they are potentially the ones on the receiving end of it, but that's at least the thought.
Yeah. And right now I still say like a Penn State team, a Notre Dame team, a Tennessee team, they're solidly in. All they have to do is win and not have to worry about conference championship games. And the bracket as would be today would be actually Georgia and Tennessee in a rematch, 8 and 9, winner playing Oregon. Then you have Notre Dame 7 and SMU 10 playing, winner playing Texas. Then you have Penn State hosting Indiana, Big Ten matchup, winner playing Miami, and Arizona State playing Ohio State at the Horseshoe, with the winner taking on SMU. That would be the bracket right now, certainly subject to change.
Yeah, no, certainly subject to change. But I tell you what, now we're getting close enough where this is starting to become a more accurate picture. And again, I think this is a largely inoffensive group of rankings that we've just gone through here most recently, because surprise, surprise, the football is taking care of a lot of that. The wins and losses on the field are largely making this a moot point. And so we can look a little bit more at how the bracket would break out. And I'll tell you what, obviously as someone whose alma mater is Notre Dame and who, when I'm not working the job, roots for them pretty heavily. If you're a Notre Dame fan, this is the best way the bracket could break for you, right? Being on the opposite side of the bracket of Georgia, Ohio State, and Oregon, the teams that outside of Texas you would largely consider the elite in the sport, and being on the side of the bracket where you've got much more flawed teams involved in this process would give you a pretty good shot. SMU in the first round, which would be a game in South Bend for a team in Dallas that's certainly not used to that same brand of weather all the time. And then, you get Texas, you've got Miami on the other side as one of the seeded teams getting a bye. And so that's the other part of this. People have talked about, the benefit of being the 5 or 6 seed and stuff like that. I still think having a first round bye is valuable, but that 5 and 6 seed spot where you're a team that's potentially not playing in the conference championship and getting to host a home game, that's a hell of a swing for you in terms of getting healthy and loading up for this run.
Yeah, and you would look at the first round matchup. Remember, their home games for 5 through 8, and really weather would only affect 2. You have Penn State hosting Indiana. Indiana's used to cold weather, and they could be playing cold weather in Penn State. Georgia, Tennessee play each other, the 2 SEC teams. It'd be at Georgia in a dome. Certainly, Arizona State traveling to Ohio State could seriously have a cold effect. And then SMU in Dallas, possibly traveling to Notre Dame, depending on the weather there, could have an effect as well.
Yeah, they're used to more of those training camps where you're worried about having practice in the middle of the day because it's so damn hot, not necessarily the other side of things. So plenty of exciting stuff still to come on there as we head into rivalry weekend in college football, which we will get to later. But coming up next, in addition to all of those Thanksgiving politics and role playing that we talked about before, you got football too. So we'll talk about that next.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic on this Wednesday that is spiritually a Friday. Jesse Cofield, Mike Golic Jr., and Mike Golic Sr. here with you, but not for long. So let's move on to the Thanksgiving day of games. Nobody's dying. I just mean.
I was going to say, what happened?
I don't know, guys. It's Friday in my book. Friday before a holiday. We're playing it fast and loose. Things are getting goofy. But anyway, let's talk about the games on Thanksgiving. Lions playing on Thanksgiving, a tradition unlike any other. This year's team, though, feels different than years past. We love it. We love to see them succeeding. Detroit, Chicago. Do we feel like this is an easy W for the Lions? They're really rolling, guys.
Yeah, Dad, it's one of those things where we talked about this about a month ago from the Chicago Bears standpoint. I think this is even before the Shane Waldron firing, and said based on the meat grinder of a schedule they had coming up, which has turned out to be just that, by the way. The Bears have lost their last 5 straight games, including 2 in the division most recently to the Packers and Vikings. And the Lions sort of represented the final boss, and it's on Thanksgiving, and it's one of the standalone games in that window, and it made us wonder if this could be a spot that might turn out to be Matt Eberflus's last game, because Dan Campbell and this Lions team seem to take these opportunities personally. We thought they were going to beat the Jags so bad that they would fire Doug Peterson the next day, and that didn't end up happening. And so I'm worried that Dan Campbell has pent-up rage that he is going to take out on this Bears team on Thanksgiving.
Listen, the Lions should easily take care of business. But when I called 8-2 Pittsburgh at 2-8 Cleveland, I thought Pittsburgh would take care of business. Now, the snow globe maybe got in the way and the weather affected that, but still, one team doing really well, one team doing really poorly, and the really poor team ended up winning the game. So, like we always say, you never know. And to sit here and try and talk up the game, you know, we talked about Aiden Hutchinson being out and it affecting the pass rush. The Lions averaging just under 2 sacks per game since week 7, fourth fewest in the NFL. So if they're not getting pressure on Caleb Williams, the Bears, since Thomas Brown has gone in, have used motion to the tune of the 7th highest in the league since Thomas Brown has started calling. What that does is it helps Caleb Williams get what the coverage is before the snap. So that's trying to help a young quarterback if he's able to figure out coverage through motion. And it also frees up the motion receiver as well from getting jammed at the line to get more of a free release. So it serves multiple purposes. And it's helping because the offense is looking better. And Caleb Williams hasn't thrown an interception since week 6 or in 5 games or whatever it is. And so I'm trying to build this up and the Bears have a good defense. So I'm trying to build this up as a good game. That said, Detroit should solidly win this game. I mean, there should be no excuse to let this one go.
Yeah, I know Detroit's a little bit banged up right now. Like Carlton Davis was dealing with a thumb and now is dealing with a knee. They might get Terrion Arnold back. There's some other guys that have showed up on the injury report, and it's a game on a short week, right? It's a Thanksgiving game, so some of these teams dealing with Thursday night practice schedule. But yeah, Dad, for the most part, if they play these games the way they shouldn't, again, this one's inside, it's in Detroit, so it's going to be in a domed environment. I just think at this point the Lions are too mature of a football team to allow this to happen. Now, what you brought up is true, and if you're not getting ready pressure on Caleb Williams, who at times maybe pushes down on turbo and the joystick too much when he's trying to play hero ball and can get himself to trouble, we saw that relationship with Keenan Allen continuing to take another step last week against the Minnesota Vikings defense that we know for Aaron Glenn, the MO has been pressure since Aiden Hutchinson went out.
Right.
You're not going to see more pressure in a game than you saw from Minnesota if you're Caleb Williams. And so
Nope.
You're a little bit more prepared for that. The game is starting to slow down because they've simplified the way that he's going through things. And so this is the biggest spread of the games on Thursday. Now, the Chiefs game on Friday is a different story, but this one, a 10-point spread here, I'd be inclined to take Detroit still in this, given what you said. I just think over time that quality wills out, but I do think right now Caleb Williams and the evaluation for him, at least coming off last week, makes me feel a lot better about the way he'll be able to go out and handle himself against this Detroit defense. Now, the other part of this is one of his favorite targets, at least over the course of the season, has been Cole Kmet, and Brian Branch lives in the middle of this defense here, and that is a man who is on a tear this season at safety for the Detroit Lions. And so that valve might force him to those receivers. But thankfully, again, Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore even all starting to get a little more involved in the offense ever since Thomas took over here.
Yeah, and the Detroit secondary has really been revamped to what a positive. Even Brian Branch, who was there, played more slot corner last year, back to playing safety.
Yeah.
Now this year, they've been playing very well, and I'm inclined to all the reasons I gave for Chicago to keep it close. I can't, in good conscience, pick them to even cover. I would take Detroit. I would give the 10. And in all honesty, I don't have a horse in the race for either one. I hope it's a close game. I hope the Bears cover. I hope they make it a really good game because Caleb Williams does seem to be a bit more comfortable for whatever reason. I'm sure it's more than a few reasons in this new offense, the Thomas Brown, the way he's running the offense. And that's a good thing going forward. Whatever happens with the Bears, management-wise, coaching staff-wise, Caleb Williams is going to be the quarterback. So his maturation process is the key the rest of this season, right? And it seems to be going in the right direction.
Yeah, maybe familiarity will breed comfort. They had the Vikings. They play the Lions here. They get a reprieve from the NFC North with the San Francisco 49ers the following week, and then go right back to playing the Vikings and the Lions after that with the Packers at the end of the season. So God be with you, young man, as we both think the Lions roll in this one. Jesse, let's talk about them Cowboys here. The game might be slop, but Jerry Jones is going to make good and damn sure our eyes are still trained on that TV to find out what happens next on his little soap opera.
Yes, this man cannot stop yapping, and we cannot stop eating it up. Here he is on head coach Mike McCarthy.
Well, I don't think that's crazy at all. That's not crazy. And listen, Mike McCarthy is an outstanding coach. I was listening to the game last night, watching it, and Aikman was talking about it, and he's reiterated that several times publicly. This Super Bowl winning coach, and Mike McCarthy has been there, done that. He's got great ideas.
So Jerry could be giving Mike McCarthy an extension? Question mark?
We did say it had been a little quiet in the last couple of weeks, and the Cowboys, in Mike McCarthy's defense, had fought incredibly hard since Dak Prescott had gone down, right? The same conversations, and Dad, this is an interesting game more from a macro level than a micro level, where the football on the field is going to be largely inconsequential to everybody who's not on the field themselves. The two coaches in this game, Brian Daboll and Mike McCarthy, both walk in on scalding hot seats. The difference is on one side, you've seen for Brian Daboll, he's had to put out fires about his star wide receiver and Malik Neighbors publicly. He's had leaders on their team calling the efforts off. He's been disputing that publicly there. And on the other side, we haven't really heard much in the way of dissent from Mike McCarthy's bunch. Now, they've dealt with some Micah Parsons quotes during the seasons, and we went through that a few weeks ago, which we even said was a bit overblown. But say what you want, players do seem to rally for and around Mike McCarthy in that locker room.
Yeah, they do. And I listen, again, I can't figure out what Jerry Jones is going to do. I keep going back to last year when he said, let's wait for the playoffs, and they got smoked at home, and McCarthy kept his job. You thought that was the perfect opportunity for Jerry to fire him. He didn't. So I can't figure out the Mike McCarthy situation at all. All I know is I've been in this situation as a player in the NFL where basically your season was over with more than a few games to go. And this comes down to the individuals and how they prepare because it's getting, it's in the second half of the season. It's, as I said, you have a 4-7 team against a 2-9 team. Neither team's going to the playoffs. A lot of it is self-preservation, depending on where you fall in the pecking order of that lineup, where you are in your contract. And I know the expectation is to play hard, but there's business decisions and I know that's not a good term to be used on players. Our players still going in and working out? Are players watching extra film still? Are they doing the things they did in the beginning of the season when their team was in it to try and win, to try and make the playoffs? Now that they're out of the playoffs, what's each individual doing? Are they being held accountable for their individual, day? Not the game, but the day. And that to me is always a big question.
I think an interesting lens to look at that through. I heard Dominique Foxworth bring this up on his show this morning, which is how each team has handled the quarterback situation. We've all been sitting here on the outside and saying, why aren't the Cowboys playing Trey Lance? What are we missing here? Get a look at him. And Mike McCarthy's saying Cooper Rush gives us the best chance to win games right now. And the rest of the locker room seems to be taking the cues from that. Dominique's point was on the Giants side, where you forsake the backup quarterback and went to Tommy DeVito in a way that signals to your roster, hey, what are we doing here? Are we trying to win? Is that our main goal right now, given who we're putting out there and the cultural message that sends to the organization that both of these teams have gone in the opposite direction on? So I think it's interesting food for thought to consider there. Looking at this game, the Giants are 3.5-point favorites. The Cowboys with the beat-up offensive line going up against that Giants front, not necessarily something that instills a ton of confidence in me, but you've also got Tommy DeVito dealing with a little bit of injury right now, too, that said he wasn't 100% sure he was going to go. So if you bet this game, go with God and do that of your own accord, because I mean, Dad, I guess maybe I would pick the Cowboys in this game, but I don't feel good about any of it.
This may be the game where you take your nap. You're in your food coma while you watch the first game. And then it all depends on when you eat. Do you eat early? We were always, a 12, 1 o'clock eat. Some eat at 5. That would be during this game. So maybe you just forsake the TV and just eat. But if you eat early while you're watching the first game, maybe this is the game you take that nap, that food coma nap, and then wake up for the last game, which actually has football meaning behind it with Miami at that Green Bay.
Yeah, Miami and Green Bay, and then the Black Friday game for Kansas City and Las Vegas are both somewhat interesting from a football perspective, Dad. With Miami, I get that Tua probably can't win MVP, and I don't know if he'd be eligible for comeback player of the year, but man, it feels like we need to acknowledge something that this season completely changed when he was back in the lineup in a way that I know we say for all starting quarterbacks, but man, we saw it, and it was pronounced when he was off there with a team, with a coach that we respected, Mike McDaniel, and thought was going to be able to weather that storm a lot better. They've got them playing great football. They've won 3 straight games here against a Packers team that's also in the best division in football. And so the Packers are 3.5-point favorites at home in this game against Miami, Dad, but Miami's sort of playing for their playoff lives right now, and I expect that level of desperation. What's your key to the game in this one?
First you have to check weather, right? The high is going to be 31. The low is going to be 23. It doesn't look like there's going to be any snow. So, and you heard Tua say, to kind of beat the rap on the warm team going to the cold weather team and winning. So it's not going to be what it was in Kansas City, but it's still going to be chilly, but no snow. So the weather shouldn't be in effect. And listen, they don't have much of a running game. And they have a great passing game. So they're going to live on the pass. And the defense try and stop Josh Jacobs, who has been running extremely well. He's third in the league in rushing and just under 1,000 yards. Jordan Love has got a plethora of receivers to throw to, where basically Tua has the 2 wide receivers that he throws to. So I listen, Miami is a tough out for teams when Tua is playing. It just shows also that they didn't do a great job getting a backup quarterback to keep them above water while your starting quarterback was out, because Tua has been absolutely on fire.
He certainly has been. So I think the Dolphins getting the hook in this one. If I was picking this against the spread, I'd probably go Dolphins plus 3.5 in this game. I think Green Bay can ultimately win this, but that Dolphins defense, especially on the ground, has been pretty good this season. Calais Campbell and that group up front have really put on a good show for the majority of this season. So I would probably lean them with the points, have the Packers win a close one in this game, and then send us on into Black Friday, where everyone's going to go out there and fight for themselves. The Chiefs are going to try and fight against basically Max Crosby and the Las Vegas defensive line in a game that they should win, and the biggest favorites of the weekend. So plenty to look forward to. Like Dad said, plan your naps accordingly. If you know you got chatty people in the room with you, make sure you get all that in before the game starts. If you're a person that's actually watching a team that you're a fan of here, you've got to have a plan. Prior preparation prevents poor performance, and that's what we're all about here at GoJo and Golic. Also, we're all about what we've got coming up next. A blind plate test here. We are going to give you guys our go-to Thanksgiving plates. We are going to try and decide whose is who, and then we will debate. That's all coming up next here on GoJo Golic.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Jesse Cofield, Mike Golic Jr. and Mike Golic Sr. here, and we got to continue our Thanksgiving talk. And the way we're doing this now is going to be with a blind plate reveal. So basically, we're going to reveal the plates, and you're going to guess, we are going to guess, whose plate belongs to who, okay? So we're kind of just doing this live. We're going to figure this out as we go. So reveal a plate?
Yeah.
How do we reveal
I don't know what
it?
the call to action is on this. Are we gonna? Okay, here we go.
Okay. Plate 1.
Oh wait, what?
Yeah, okay. So what does that say? My
It
eyesight.
just says
bean
green
casserole.
casserole.
Oh, okay. So
See, we did.
okay,
You can
so-
tell we did not plan this out how we were going to do this before the show.
No.
If it's green bean casserole, I'd got to imagine this is my plate, though. Me or Dad would both have green bean casserole on this.
Okay, so I'm gonna guess it's Senior. Senior, is this yours? I don't know. Do we reveal
Well,
another
I mean,
food?
Do we get a reveal now?
This is the thing of doing it live, and we had no communication, because if Mike had green bean casserole as one of his sides and I had green bean casserole as one of my, okay, so now it's Mike's.
Yeah.
It's GoJo. Okay, so he's going. We have his main is ham. His two sides are green bean casserole, dressing, and his dessert is pumpkin pie. Is dressing a side? I thought that was like an accoutrement.
That's a universal
it's a
question. But here's to show you about obviously Mike and I, being father and son. Put up my plate. Put up my plate.
Let's see Senior's plate. We're
put up my whole plate.
We're blowing up this whole thing. So let's see Senior's plate. Okay.
Yeah.
So Senior has ham, green bean casserole, stuffing. So you guys have the same plate, except for
Exactly.
Powerful.
stuffing and
Exactly.
dressing. Damn, yeah, genetics are powerful. Wow.
So this is a segment that just blew up in our faces.
Yeah.
It was not well planned. It was not well prepared. But it's not shocking that Mike and I picked the same. I thought we would do like a food draft where you pick the mains, and if you got yours picked, you had to think of another main. But regardless, Mike and I have had many a Thanksgiving dinner together, and we do definitely like the same things.
I just feel
Wait, so
like.
can we see?
Oh, you want to see mine?
Go ahead.
You want to see mine?
We kind of. I
wanna
feel
see
like
mine?
we're all putting our cards on the table right now.
Okay. We got our honey baked ham, stuffing, whipped sweet potatoes with maple butter. That's important. Apple pie is my dessert, and then I threw in caviar just for the haters out there and the freaks, because I know you guys like that.
The yearly tradition of Jesse's Thanksgiving caviar, which again I will say, when Jesse brought this up last year in confidence, and then I betrayed her trust completely. I had not had caviar at that point, and now having had it, I kind of get it. It's a nice, salty little treat. It's a fun little texture before you get started with the main Thanksgiving dinner. It'll probably not be a staple of any Thanksgiving I'm ever involved at, but I wouldn't turn it down if it was there, Jesse, is what I'm saying.
I also want to make it clear that it's not like at the table. It's not like sitting next to the turkey. Like it's like how you have a charcuterie plate.
Well, of course,
how
that
you
would
have,
be uncouth.
Yeah, that would be just ridiculous. But I just want to make that clear.
I tell you what, your whipped sweet potato potatoes and maple butter, that's a winner.
Yeah.
That is a big time winner. I like that. Because I don't like the yams. I'm not really a vegetable guy, though I do like a great green bean casserole. But I'm not really a vegetable guy. And I'm not really, as Mike can attest with his plate, we're not really turkey people. Turkey, I think, for Thanksgiving is somewhat overrated. I would take a couple of meats before a turkey, or at least have it as a choice, of 2 or 3 meats as a choice, and then I can just forego the turkey. Though I will say, this kind of bleeds into my Thanksgiving of eating early. What I do like is a good souped up turkey sandwich later in the day. So we'll eat at noon or 1, and then you do your customary nap. And then that's why I like eating early, because you can eat leftovers the rest of the day. You eat at 5 or 6 o'clock. Now you're getting to the place you're going to go at like 3. You're eating appetizers. You're filling up on apps, and you're eating one meal, and then you're basically going home. Where you eat at 1 o'clock, you can sporadically eat more dessert, eat, like I said, a turkey sandwich. You can mix up what you're eating a little bit, and you can make actually the turkey more desirable by making it a sandwich with some mayo on it and dress it up with some lettuce and really dress up the turkey.
So that's the thing with turkey, that the truth about turkey is that everybody talks about it. They're like, oh, you have to have turkey on Thanksgiving. And then it's like, we're smothering it in gravy and stuffing and all these things. Like, can we just admit that turkey's not good and people don't want to eat it? Like, the only way that it tastes good is if you shove a bunch of stuff on top of it or in it. It's like when people eat fish and the biggest compliment you can give fish is that it doesn't taste fishy. You're like, why are we, okay? So we don't like it.
So I would say this. For me, I think it's come so far that turkey's now properly rated. Because for a while, I think it got undue billing as the main staple of Thanksgiving. It always has. It's got great branding for this. We're going to see the giant one in the parade and all that stuff. But I think at this point, so much of Big Ham has gotten its claws into this, and we've all been given license to speak our truth about turkey, that it now got to a point where it was almost slightly underrated. It got dogged out a lot here because I think what turkey is it's a Shanahan-McVay quarterback. You're not exactly sure what to make of it here because all of a sudden, if you take it off the plate, it doesn't quite feel the same. It doesn't all kind of work the same here. You feel a little wanting, especially not having a tried and true protein like that can absorb all these other parts here. Ham on its own doesn't really mix well with the other stuff as much. It's usually got too much flavor on its own. It wants to break off and make plays and run down the field and be its own check down. But turkey's going to be there helping everybody shine. You can get the mashed potatoes in on it. The gravy's the glue guy in the locker room. Everything else pairs well with the turkey. So I do think it understands in a more paint-by-numbers offense how to go and operate at a high level.
And I would agree with the turkey because another side I love, and if I would take stuffing off and change Mike's up, my wife makes an incredible 7-layer salad, which is just phenomenal. Sour cream, cheese, lettuce, peas, bacon. I mean, it is fantastic. But my point is with turkey on a plate, and Jesse, you obviously chime in on this. Of all the holiday meals, turkey on a plate with your meal is the most mixable. You can mix it with the mashed potatoes, with a 7-layer salad, with a green bean casserole, with your yams, whatever, where you sometimes on a plate you don't mix stuff or you just kind of eat it separately. I think a Thanksgiving plate can be mixed more than any other holiday plate.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, if we're just trying to make ourselves sick and eat as much as we can and just pile things on top of each other, turkey gets the job done. But that's the compliment to it is like turkey's bland enough that you can shove all this other stuff on top of it. And eating it alone would be kind of gross.
Pocket passer. Turkey is your tried and true old school pocket passer, and Ham is Josh Allen out here moosing his way through the defense, making big time plays, and finding a way to do it all on their own right now. So yeah, and you know what? We didn't have the conversation in this either. Shout out to rolls getting you through Thanksgiving. I feel like rolls, and then whatever you make is the dip, because we were having the argument here, and Dad, you brought up a great point. There are so many elements to when you bring out the bird and you do the actual meal. And the advantage of doing it early and on time is twofold. One, it allows me to prepare coming over to make sure I got my loose pants on. I have not eaten enough in the morning to make myself too full for the meal. And then you get the leftovers after the fact. God forbid you're hosting, then you get them the next day too. But the other element of all of that to me is also just that factor of also trying to time your desserts out in this too, because that's a big part of my culture.
Oh, of your culture. Yeah, absolutely. Wait, can I get a clarification really quick, though, of GoJo? What is dressing as a side? Like, what is...
Dressing is stuffing that is cooked outside of the bird. So it's the same parts that go into it. It's just stuffing is quite literally usually cooked inside the turkey when you've got it in the oven, and then you pull it out here. Dressing is just made outside of that, too. So it's like, honestly... Yeah, so that's a distinction that sometimes feels arbitrary. The other one for me, and I know this is always a controversial take that skews along cultural lines, and I'm about to get white boyed into the oblivion, but to me, pumpkin pie, sweet potato pie, really not all that dissimilar. I don't know why we spend so much time arguing about the two of them. They're both good. They both taste largely the same. If I'm going to pick one over the other, it's going to be pumpkin pie, but I really think we waste a lot of bandwidth on this.
I definitely can. Listen, sweet potato pie is good. Pumpkin pie to me is great. And you gotta have Cool Whip. You gotta have a whip topping as well. But Jesse, I do like it. I am not normally a fruit pie person except for apple pie.
Yeah.
I will deal with an apple pie. Maybe a la mode with a little ice cream. Certainly some whipped cream on top. Gotta have whipped. No, No
I'm
ice
saying,
cream on your apple pie?
I'm
whipped
having
cream?
shivers because it sounds so good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't like apple pie either. That's my other thing.
Why?
And the thing about it is,
Not good.
isn't there a separate compartment in our stomach for dessert that no matter how full
Yes.
you are, that you can have a piece of pie or a piece of cake or whatever.
Oh,
there is always room for dessert.
I can be so full that I feel like I'm going to vomit and I can still have a little something sweet. It's honestly sick, but yeah. That's
The
true.
dessert stomach has scientific backing. I read one article once. I don't remember any of it, but I just remember enough to know that that's something true and something that can be counted on here. So, yeah, listen, you can look it up. I'm sure Google will produce a result for somebody here. I just can't produce it for you right now. So shout out to dessert. Shout out to the pre-meal dip, by the way, too, which I feel like is an important part of things in here. Someone usually, we used to do a lot of holidays with the Periano family, and Mrs. Periano would always make a buffalo chicken dip. And I don't care what holiday it is, you can involve a buffalo chicken dip. It doesn't need to be part of any sort of traditional lore. No one is going to turn down a buffalo chicken dip. You just got to make sure you give that thing time to cool, or else you will ruin the rest of your meal and your mouth for years.
Well, the downside, too, is actually sitting by it. And then my problem is eating too much appetizer, eating too much dip before the meal. I'm horrible at pacing myself. And obviously, if you're going to have a dinner late, now when we would eat with the Perianos, it would be later in the day, so there'd be a lot of appetizers out. And I'm horrible at any kind of self-control at all. I just smash my pie hole with appetizer, and then I'm kind of full when the meal starts.
Yeah, I will eat a brick of cheese before we even break into the meal. Yeah, the charcuterie board gets me going.
Speaking of a brick of cheese here, shout out to Brent Venables. Do you guys see this headline? After Brent Venables, the head coach at Oklahoma, beat Alabama, him and his family, his daughters, went to Taco Bell and spent $94. And I got to say this, the internet can be a very ugly place at times, and it was ugly yesterday. Tom Fornelli, friend of the program here, does a great job over at the Cover 3 podcast, made the offhanded comment that a lot of us do, which is spending $100 at Taco Bell has been an historically impossible task. And he threw that out there and got blasted by people talking about, well, it's 2024, boomer, and now things cost a little more. I went and built an order the other day at Taco Bell on the app that added up to $94.13. And the amount of food that you can get for that amount of money here, this is what the order ended up looking like here. So you guys tell me, young people who apparently eat at Taco Bell more than me, which the lie detector test determined that's a lie. I'm built for this, so don't even think about trying me. For $94.13, you can get 4 chicken quesadillas, a cheesy roll-up, 2 Crunchwrap Supremes, 2 Mexican pizzas, 1 3-cheese chicken flatbread melt, 1 stacker, 2 nacho fries, 1 Mexi melt, 1 tostada, 1 Cantina chicken burrito, 1 steak grilled cheese burrito combo, and deluxe craving box. That's what you get for $94. So if that doesn't feed the fam, then congratulations, y'all are built different.
I honestly didn't get any of that, but...
Oh,
Learn,
I did.
Jesse.
Listen,
this is going to be part of your initiation
said,
down in New Orleans when we do
yeah.
this.
I'm scared.
And Brent said he went with his 2 daughters, but we don't know if he was buying for more, right? We don't know if he was buying for just the 3 of them or taking some home to more people at home. You know, that we don't know. So that's a part of the story that would need clarification. If it was 93, because what you just read, Mike, for 3 people, a father and 2 daughters, is a lot. That is a lot.
But we don't.
But if
maybe
he's
they
taking
weren't
it home
eating
to
all
more
of it.
people,
I'm not questioning their ability to take this down or not. What I'm saying is exactly what you guys just said. $94 at Taco Bell in whatever year still buys you a lot of food, and people trying to act like that's otherwise, or that's not a lot of food here. That could be. I've gone to Taco Bell with large groups of professional athletes who can eat like it's going out of style. And this would have adequately fed us and then some. So shout out to Brent Venables for being a man of taste and culture, but also shame on you people coming for poor Tom Fornelli for just going out here and speaking the truth online about Taco Bell. You all need to find Jesus this holiday season and figure out your lives. Coming up next, we're going to try and figure out the college football playoff rankings and look ahead to a little bit of rivalry weekend with our friend Nicole Auerbach next on GoJo Golic.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. In case you missed it, in the world of baseball, the rich get richer as the world champion Dodgers have signed free agent left-handed pitcher Blake Snell to a 5-year, $182 million contract, including no opt-outs, some deferred money, and a $52 million signing bonus. Must be nice. In the world of college basketball, number 6 ranked Kansas beat number 11 Duke 75-72 in the Terry's Chocolate Vegas Showdown, pushing them to a 6-0 start. Defending national champion UConn dropped back-to-back games in Maui, the latest being the Colorado. That makes UConn the 5th-ranked team in AP poll history to lose by 2 points or fewer on consecutive days since Michigan in 1983.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Hour number 2 here. Michael Penix Jr. going to stop by in about a half hour and talk about his rookie season. Waiting in the wings, having to watch all the guys that he competed with last year go on to these starting jobs in the NFL as he waits his turn with the Atlanta Falcons. But before we get to that, we got plenty of great stuff we still got to talk about on the college football front, as we not only have fresh rankings from last night, but also a big-time rivalry weekend with plenty of implications still for the end of the season in this sport. To help us do that, NBC Sports lead college football and college basketball insider Nicole Auerbach kind enough to join us now here. And doing so, this is my other favorite part about the holidays, is we get the alternate background. So Nicole, you're back at home and you've got a very different bookshelf here. And we just noticed before, you've got every For Dummies book I think ever written behind you here. How much smarter do you feel already being back home?
Yeah, so apparently, this is the office that I used and did like all of my high school homework and all of that. Apparently it has not changed whatsoever, because let me read you some of the For Dummies. We have Italy, Scotland, and golf for dummies, World War II for dummies, statistics for dummies, which I did take. That was my AP stats class senior year, so that was definitely for that reason. But then early internet, we have Office XP for Dummies and the wireless networking services for dummies. So very much a
Wow.
time capsule of like the early 2000s right in this
Hey,
office.
that just shows me your parents were well prepared, right? And trying to give you the information that you needed while they were also getting the information. That's great parenting. That's great parenting is coming from a parent that is great parenting.
It is
I
also
completely
amazing.
agree. How else would they have helped me with statistics if we didn't know how to do it for dummies?
Yes, because they weren't going to help you with statistics, so they had to get a book for it.
I know that's the thing we're finding out right now with my brother and his son is my brother and his wife are going to have to do a lot of relearning to get ready to help their son learn here pretty soon because that all waves bye-bye. It's amazing how many of those books could still help my father in 2024 understand the world of technology around him. So maybe we'll have you mail a couple of those over to him to try and help the cause here this holiday season. In the meantime, Nicole, you can help us with what's going on in college football right now. We got the newest batch of rankings last night here. Indiana falling all the way down to 10 from 5, I think was largely expected. Did that surprise you at all? And if not, what did?
Yeah, no, I thought that was a pretty reasonable drop. It was such an interesting experience watching Indiana play Ohio State as the game's happening, feeling how we felt about how they were hanging, how they were playing, what the final score was looking like, the extra points at the end. And then that drastically changes 20 minutes when Ole Miss loses. That drastically changes by the end of the night as Alabama gets waxed by Oklahoma. So considering all that had happened, I thought Indiana would squarely be in the bubble, but on the right side of the bubble. And that's where they are, right? They're close to the cut line. They're going to potentially need some help, but they're fairly well positioned. And they didn't get dinged too much for a loss to a team that the committee thinks is the number 2 team in the country. One thing I did think was surprising was Clemson. I feel like the selection committee is using them as a buffer between the bracket and the 3-loss SEC teams because they agree with most of us and said, hey, these feel like eliminators, right? You're losing to a 5-5 Oklahoma team. You're not even competitive. It'd be really hard to put Alabama in the bracket. But they do have that win over Georgia. They have enough on that resume. The way they beat LSU, South Carolina win. There's enough there that they're still around the bracket. They're still on the bubble, but on the wrong side. But it would feel a little weird to put them so close to making it right now. So, oh, great. There's a 2-loss Clemson. That's a brand that everybody knows and loves. And that sounds like a good team, even though they haven't done a ton. There's not a lot on that resume. And I feel like they're using them as a buffer. So to me, if we end up getting down to a scenario where Clemson or Alabama are actually making the field, I think we've got some pretty flawed teams. I know that's how the bubble works, but I think I feel better about the bracket the way it's constructed right now based off this week's rankings than if we see some chaos or Clemson beat South Carolina and potentially jumps somebody. It feels like the committee is setting that up for one of those 2 brand names that have really defined the playoff era to have another shot by putting Clemson and then Alabama right on the outside looking in.
So, I mean, right now, the conference that's in the blender is the Big 12 with Colorado, ASU, Iowa State, and BYU fighting for the championship game, all outside the top 12. So let's talk about the Power 3 then. If it goes according to plan and Oregon plays Ohio State and Georgia plays Texas, and SMU plays Miami, the lowest ranked of all that is SMU at 9. Will any of the losing teams get knocked out of the playoffs?
This is going to be the big question, right? I mean, we've seen a lot of public pressure on the committee from the commissioners of those leagues, from fans, from coaches about losing that game. And every time Rich Clark, the executive director of the CFP, talks about this, or when I went through the mock selection committee process earlier in the fall, they say, hey, we don't think that they're going to get penalized for playing an extra game because they're going to get compared to teams that aren't playing that week and aren't going to have an opportunity to lose another game. Until we see it for sure, we just don't know. And are they going to treat the loser of an SEC Big Ten championship game the same way they do in the ACC or the Big 12, right? I mean, because you could also make the case that you're learning something about these teams in these losses. What if it's a blowout loss, right? There's just too many what ifs for us to not know exactly what the committee is doing here. But I do feel pretty good just the way it's going to shake out with the Big Ten and the SEC. I think if Georgia's 3rd loss is in the SEC championship game, easy enough to explain away with the schedule that they've played. Now, I do think the ACC is in a precarious spot. They're in the best position they have been all season long to get multiple teams in, but it's to that exact point. What happens if SMU loses and they're already kind of near the bottom? Could they get jumped by somebody else? Also, kind of feels like, again, Clemson is going to play South Carolina this weekend. That's a top 15 showdown. It sort of feels like they're setting them up so that Clemson could possibly even jump the loser of the ACC championship game without playing in it. So that's where, like, I just think there's still a lot to be determined. And I think that's where the real angst has been, which I know is a lot to say because people have been very angry about these rankings over the last few weeks. But how they handled the conference championship game losers will unlock a new level of anger, I think, from the college football internet.
That is very interesting to think about for a Miami team that skated by for a lot of the year, playing close games, playing down to their competition, has the loss to Georgia Tech, to now all of a sudden sit there if they were to lose to SMU in that title game and be faced with a Clemson team that, like you said, 2 losses on the resume would be just like Miami, and if they had a win over an SEC team like South Carolina that everyone has respect for, especially on that defense, how positioned are they to say, hey, you know what? We know Clemson and Miami didn't have to play, but we might want to just go ahead and swap these two out here to avoid that. Would be very, very interesting, to say the least, with those teams. And it underscores, Nicole, going into this season, what an exciting weekend it's going to be. We've got that South Carolina-Clemson game. We've got Texas and Texas A&M that's for a spot in the SEC championship game. Notre Dame and USC. Is there a team that you believe is actually on upset alert this weekend that should be most worried about the matchup that they've got, especially with postseason hopes on the line?
I mean, I think it's got to be Texas. I feel like we've been talking about this for a number of weeks now, right? Of them just not having a ton on that resume. And how are they ranked so high? Why are they so much ahead of Georgia, a team that crushed them? And so I've had all those questions as well. I've actually compared Penn State and Texas's resumes for weeks now. They just don't have marquee wins, and yet they're kind of getting credit and propped up by their loss, even though, again, Texas's was a blowout loss to Georgia. So to me, I think that's a team and a game that obviously is going to be an incredible atmosphere. It's going to be incredibly heated, hated, all of those things. It's a rivalry that hasn't existed for more than a decade. A&M, I think, classic trap game. They lose to Auburn. And then you have a Texas team where we don't know, how close to 100% Quinn Ewers is going to be with that ankle. Again, they just kind of, for as much as the rigors of being the SEC, year one in the SEC, the way that their schedule fall, they didn't go to some of the most hostile road environments. They also caught Oklahoma and Michigan and teams that were really on a downswing. So how tested have they been? The one time they were tested, they got blown out by Georgia. So to me, that is the game of the weekend, which it obviously is. Game day is going there, and it's going to get all of the primetime treatment. But that's the one that I feel least confident in the favored team. And I really do think that if Texas doesn't win this game, they could get knocked out of the playoff, because again, at that point, you look at their resume and you say, what is this being propped up on? And at that point, there's also 2 losses. And this is a committee that clearly is counting the number of losses in the loss column. And that's how they are organizing a lot of these teams. So 2 losses drops you way back down. And really, I guess the only saving grace is that there's 3 lost teams behind you. But I really think at that point, you look at how flimsy Texas's resume is, and it gets really dicey for them. So to me, that's the one. I think Texas is a great team. I think they're really talented. But I cannot get what happened against Georgia out of my mind. And I just think, rivalry games, that type of atmosphere, so much at stake, absolutely could see the Aggies play spoiler.
Wow, Mike, that would mean they would drop at least 9 spots to number 12 and get bumped out by a Big 12 team jumping up. That would be one hell of a fall.
But to Nicole's point, I do think a lot of people have been looking at that Texas resume and wondering if this was possible, and this game always represented the final boss there. That would be surprising. Nicole, I think one of the other surprising things, and as someone that, listen, Notre Dame, my alma mater, have certainly been keeping a close watch on this season that's changed a lot since the Northern Illinois game. You said you were surprised that Notre Dame didn't jump Penn State in this ranking. Why do you think the Irish looked poised to actually jump over this Penn State team that all year has been getting that Big Ten credit for the close game against Ohio State?
Yeah, that's their number one thing in their resume right now. But they eked out a win over Minnesota. Again, if we're going to be looking at the eye test, if we're going to be evaluating these teams based on just more than just the wins and losses in various different metrics, you have to consider how they play and how they look. And again, maybe this committee this year is treating this a little bit differently. We're continuing to learn about them. But to me, the string of wins that Notre Dame has had, again, some of these teams have fallen out of the rankings. Army was ranked last week. Now they're not. But Notre Dame has been the most dominant team in the country for the last 2 months, the most consistent team in the country for the last 2 months. They lead FBS in points differential and in ESPN's own game control metric, which just shows, like, in the middle of a game, how do you feel about that team's chances to win the game? So to me, the committee has already excused the Northern Illinois loss, as you mentioned. They've had them ranked in the bracket. They've had them hosting a game in the projected bracket the last couple of weeks. That is a non-factor. Ward Manuel, the committee chair, has said, we think that's a totally different team now. And I've said that from the start, that if they won out after that game, they'd be fine. The system is not set up to leave out an 11-1 Notre Dame team, no matter who the loss is to. So to me, the question is just, well, what point do you look at the dominance, the way that they have been playing, the way the committee has treated, Michigan in the past last year, or, Indiana up until their first loss as being dominant,
right,
being a complete team, although we still have questions about Notre Dame's passing offense. To me, what they do, the run game and the defense, they are elite. And I could see the committee saying, we believe in that. And Penn State hasn't really done a lot. They don't have a lot. Their resume is propped up on an Illinois team that is barely in the top 25. I think what's going to happen, though, because it didn't happen this week, is next week. They'll be able to compare how Penn State and Notre Dame play USC. And at that point, you can flip the order of those two teams.
So quickly, Nicole, you said if Texas loses, they may be out. Notre Dame wins, they're in and they're hosting. There's no doubt about it. What if they lose? Are they out?
I don't know. That would become a pretty fascinating situation as well. Another one I'll throw in there, Tennessee loses to Vanderbilt, right? Then it gets very messy and murky, and I'm not sure who comes out of it, because it does seem like the committee likes Notre Dame. But at that point, you have to look for the wins that are going to offset the losses, and see how the committee feels about USC. They're not ranked right now. So I think things would get dicier. I feel a lot better about Notre Dame with one loss than I do with two, but none of this stuff happens in a vacuum with bubble teams. So you got to root for a bunch of other teams to lose if that happens.
Yep, and well, I mean, it's a lot easier if you just go and win it. Kind of like Deion Sanders said last week. They had the opportunity, Colorado, to control their own destiny, and they fumbled it. Notre Dame very much in the driver's seat as well in that regard for what's sure to be a final college football playoff rankings that won't make anyone upset at all. Nicole Auerbach, thank you so much, as always, for helping us out here. Enjoy the time at home and in brushing up on all of the early 2000s lore in the For Dummies books.
Thank you. I think I'll write college football playoff for dummies while I'm here. It feels like the only right decision.
There we go. I was going to say add author to the ever-growing list of Nicole's titles. That would be a great addition, Dad, to the For Dummies series here. Because if anything needs an explainer course for all of us, it's year in and year out, whatever the hell the College Football Playoff Committee is trying to do with this process.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Before we get into a discussion of this weekend's rivalry games in college football, we got to take a listen to Coach Prime and his displeasure at finding out that Travis Hunter was left off the Thorpe list.
How is Travis Hunter snubbed by the Jim Thorpe Award? You can have my award, you can have it back. Matter of fact, I'm gonna give him mine. I ain't using it, just sit up there collecting dust. So Travis could have my Thorpe Award, because if this ain't the most idiotic thing in college football that he's not a finalist for the Jim Thorpe Award.
I mean, I kind of got to agree here. How do you leave him off this list?
Yeah, so the finalists for the Thorpe Award right now this year were Jahdae Barron from Texas, Caleb Downs at Ohio State, and Malachi Starks at Georgia. And I just want to say, all very deserving names to be on this list. Like, defensive back in particular, it's kind of like the offensive line awards, where stats are only going to tell so much of the story for defensive backs. I always point back to the year that Kobe Bryant, the defensive back for the Cincinnati Bearcats, won the Thorpe Award and was a finalist over Sauce Gardner. If you had asked any coach that played those teams, they never threw Sauce's way. He didn't have stats because no one even bothered to try that side of the field, and people couldn't see that on a paper, and so they didn't give him the same acclaim when the award season came, even though Sauce Gardner was a first-round draft pick, and Kobe Bryant still become a productive NFL player and all these things, but it was very clear it's sort of the same thing that we're dealing with Travis Hunter now. I think where, again, if you're going to make me take one of these guys off, that's sort of a difficult exercise, but Travis Hunter has no doubt been an incredible corner on that team, and so it's just a reminder that these awards, a lot of them in the postseason, listen, full disclosure, I am a voter for the Heisman. I'm a voter for the Joe Moore Award, which goes to the best offensive line unit. But a lot of these awards at times can be a little bit flawed with some of the voter base here. And the Thorpe certainly seems to be one that comes under fire a fair amount.
Yeah, and like you said, you'd have to take one off, and that's difficult to do. But you make a great point. Like Travis Hunter, I believe, is up for the Blitnikoff Award as a top receiver in the country, has 82 receptions, over 1,000 yards, 11 touchdowns. You can look at those stats and say, yes, you're a finalist. But you're right as far as DBs are concerned. It's another one like offensive linemen as well. When you get the award for the O-lineman, it's like you got to watch these guys play because there's no stats to go with an O-lineman. And as far as a DB, you're exactly right. If you don't get thrown at, you can't have massive stats. He has 3 interceptions, 9 passes defensed. So, I mean, those are credible, certainly credible stats. But the fact is they don't throw his way a lot. And you have to watch that and know that to understand it. And it's just not something I think voters look at how many interceptions or how many passes defense or how many tackles and go by that when there's more to a DB. I think it's crazy that he's not a finalist. I completely agree with Dion.
It's one of those things where, and I can understand why Dion would go and put on for his guy. It's also one of those things, he's probably going to win the Heisman, so this is sort of going to fade into the background. If you asked him for a choice of what he'd rather have, I'm sure he would take the Heisman 10 out of 10 times. And so this will end up being more of a moot point. And again, I don't want to skew this as the guys that we just mentioned. I mean, these are some of the best players in all of college football. You know, it's unfortunate Will Johnson at Michigan's been injured for so much of this season that he wasn't going to really be a factor in this either, but it's just a reminder, man. It's a lot like the Grammys and all these other award shows here. Most of it's contrived. You don't have to make this your whole personality, but it does suck to see that a guy that's been so clearly one of the great stories of college football this year is now going to have some people go and see, this is why you need to pick a side, as if he didn't go out here and produce winning football on both sides of this. So nonsense stuff there going on in award season here. But Jesse, we got a full slate of football this weekend that we got to start looking into here. We got some bangers in rivalry weekend.
Yeah, rivalry weekend. First up, a renewal here. Okay, the Lone Star Showdown. This series has been dormant for 13 years. It's now a play-in, essentially, for the SEC championship. Are we expecting fireworks for this one? Number 3 Texas at number 15 Texas A&M.
Well,
Dad, I feel like everyone's been kind of waiting for Texas to take a step forward or put their foot down on the gas more here in a way that really just isn't going to come. I think the thing I'm most interested to see in this game is going to be what this Texas offensive line that I expected to be one of the better offensive lines in college football and has really failed to deliver in the ways that I thought they were going to against what we know is a group of alien ballers up front for Texas A&M on that defensive front. I think that and how they affect Quinn Ewers is what goes the furthest in how this game ultimately turns out.
Yeah, completely agree. That D-line for Texas A&M. And it's amazing. They lose that overtime game to Auburn, and it really doesn't affect their outcome, right? They control their own destiny to make it to the playoffs. And obviously they to get to the title game and win it, actually maybe have a bye, but they still control their own destiny. And I tell you, while I agree about the D-line of Texas A&M and the O-line of Texas, what Marcel Reed has done since he has been in there, man, I mean, dude is just incredible. What he has done since he's taken over. He's thrown just 3 interceptions to 12 touchdowns. He runs the ball incredibly well. What a wild card he has been for A&M. While I agree it is the lines of scrimmage, but how much effect will Marcel Reed have on this game?
Yeah, I mean, we saw the way the offense transformed with him in there against LSU. There's no doubt it's a different thing, but now you're prepared for that if you're Texas on defense, and that Texas defense has been one of the strong suits of this team for the majority of the year. I think Texas still gets this done. I think this ultimately winds up as being, the end and the capstone, and finally, a win of more substance that they can point to on their resume than they've had so far. We talked with Nicole about that. That's kind of been the issue for Texas so far. The Freudian slip that I had there is, the same thing that we heard from Mike Elko from Texas A&M not too long ago. So I like Texas in this game, Dad. Do you?
I think overall I do like Texas. I think they get it done with Quinn Ewers throwing the ball. So I do think it will be them and Georgia in the SEC title game.
Awesome. All right, let's move on to one near and dear to our hearts. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here. Notre Dame SC is an interesting game this weekend, Dad. And this Notre Dame team, we haven't really mentioned this, is in the exact same position that our team was back in 2012. This is a USC team that came into the season highly ranked and regarded and people thought was ready to take the next step with D'Anton Lynn coming over to help revamp this defense. They came off with the big win opening weekend over LSU in Las Vegas. And since then, the arrow's gone down for them and up for Notre Dame, very similar to 2012, where USC was number 1 ranked in the country before the season. Matt Barkley was supposed to win the Heisman, and they ended up unranked playing number 1 Notre Dame at the end of the year in Southern Cal with a win and you're in scenario. And it's difficult. And for these rivalry games, Dad, especially Thanksgiving week, like everyone else is home on fall break. It's just you and the team around there. It's a totally different tone and tenor to this week than a lot of the other weeks of preparation. So trying to make it feel normal is pretty tough, because I remember sitting in the hotel with you before this game. We knew if we won, we were going to then the BCS national title. Yep. And even with that, going in the prospect of beating USC on their home turf, getting to chuck down the Trojan sign, all that stuff is what you sign up to Notre Dame to come do. This is a rivalry, I think, more grounded in respect than hate, a la the Michigan rivalry, where proximity makes that happen.
Yes.
And so this is something that matters a lot in its own unique way. And Marcus Freeman, I know, has spent extra time this week. Al Golden brought up the fact that when you turn on The Godfather 2 in the background, is Notre Dame SC playing in terms of the magnitude of this game on its own. And so I think it is fun because this one is a rivalry that's separated by so many miles, but still seems to matter so much.
And it is a rivalry more out of respect than hatred. You're absolutely right. A lot of these guys are recruited to both schools. It's always something when you grab a Midwest guy and he goes to USC, or you grab a California guy and he goes to Notre Dame. And oh, by the way, congrats to Al Golden. He is a Broyles Award semifinalist, I believe. That goes to the top assistant coach. He has been incredible as leading that Notre Dame defense, one of the best defenses in the country. Yes, and the similarities with this game and when you and Jake were at Notre Dame in 2012 is amazing. Winning, you're in. Now, the difference is Notre Dame could lose this game and maybe still be in, but they would go – I don't think they would be. I think they would drop out. But there's a possibility they would be in. They wouldn't host a game. But let's just say, for sake of argument, you back in the BCS, it was only 1 and 2. and lost, you guys were definitely going to be out. And then there was the extra to go beat USC at USC. So I'm sure Marcus will have this team prepared. They are playing as well as any team in the country. And Nicole talked about, the while it's becoming better, still the weakness is the passing game. We know the defense is excellent. The running game is fantastic. The passing game, though it has improved drastically, is still, if you get caught in a position where you're down a couple of scores and have to pass your way back into a game, there are questions whether Notre Dame could do that. Because since the NIU loss, they haven't had to pass their way back into the game. The passing game was used as a complement to the offense and the running game where you could mix and match it. But if you're solely reliant on the pass, we're not sure where Notre Dame would be there. It's gotten, like I said, it's gotten a ton better, but Notre Dame has not been in the position to just have to pass their way back into the game. And hopefully they won't be, but obviously getting into the playoffs, which we expect them to do, it's going to be a tougher road.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me. I do think, though, USC, you've seen the struggles for them offensively as of late. They made the quarterback change to Jordan Mailata, the transfer, in favor of Miller Moss. And so Mailata's been productive since he's been in there. This is a USC team that's still athletic, can move the ball. Lincoln Riley's offenses are always going to be able to do that between the 20s. Really struggled in the red zone, struggled putting up points, only scored 19 in a rivalry game against UCLA last week. And I think for Notre Dame defensively up front, they're just so potent along the front seven defensively that USC offensive line going to be overmatched. So I'm going to give our Campbell's Chunky offensive lineman of the week to the Notre Dame offensive line and say this: Anthony Knapp, the left tackle, who was the freshman, wasn't even supposed to start at the beginning of the season. There was an injury to Charles Jagasaw, who's supposed to be the heralded left tackle freshman prospect to go out there, that ultimately wound up with Anthony Knapp going and getting his first start against Texas A&M at the beginning of the season. And it was trial by fire. That young man is playing some really impressive football down the home stretch of the season. This whole line has weathered injury. They came in with 6 career starts to their name, and now they're a Joe Moore Award semifinalist for the best offensive line in college football and have really played a big part in opening up holes for the quarterback and for Jeremiah Love.
It's amazing what 11 games will do for a true freshman stepping in his first game to 11 games later. He's a grizzled veteran. I mean, he has been through the wears and the wars without question. So that O-line has been one of the biggest improvements of where they started to where they are now.
Yep. So, again, congratulations to the Campbell's Chunky offensive lineman of the week and Anthony Knapp and the rest of that group. They've all done a great job. Joe Rudolph, the offensive line coach, deserves a ton of credit for that development. Dad, last but not least, we have the game. Ohio State and Michigan, which unfortunately on the field doesn't seem like it's set up for as much of a fireworks fest as we had hoped going into a year where Michigan's defending a national championship. They've obviously got bright days ahead that they're excited about with Bryce Underwood now committed to them and heading over to campus with that major bag secured. But for Ohio State, we know the national championship is the goal on the table. Beating Michigan is the reason they went out and spent $20 million on the roster this year. Beating Michigan is the reason you've had this single-minded focus since last season, and really the last few seasons where Jim Harbaugh reversed polarity on what this rivalry had been. And so I know Ohio State had to jumble up that offensive line, which I thought, given the fact that they've shuffled so many guys around there due to injury at center, at left tackle, performed really well against Indiana with that in mind. They're going to get a much stiffer test against Michigan, but this is a game where Will Johnson, it looks like, still might not be in this game. Their star cornerback for Michigan, who's been out for a number of weeks now. They also might be down Colston Loveland, who's been their best tight end and most consistent receiver. And so I just think it's too much for Michigan to overcome with the talent gap on the field. And for a game that Ohio State, this is sort of like a Rocky movie where this has been their sole focus, and they're going to come out and give you everything they've been saving.
Yeah, obviously the sole focus of beating Michigan, something they haven't done. As you mentioned, Harbaugh turned the tables on them. Now it's time for Ryan Day to turn the tables back and get this win. And obviously it's twofold. It puts them in the Big Ten championship game for their rematch for the 1-point loss against Oregon. But you want to talk about guys not looking past this game to the Big Ten championship game. As we talked about Notre Dame and USC, a rivalry built more on respect. This one is built out of hate. There is no doubt about it. There is no love lost here. And if Ohio State can lay one on Michigan, they are going to try desperately to lay it on Michigan hard.
Yeah, this is pure fresh cut hate. Ohio State a 20.5-point favorite in this game. They're favored by 3 touchdowns against their rival. And if they have it their way, listen, it's much different. They were physically able to overmatch Indiana last week at so many different points. Not going to be the case for Michigan, but I think the Buckeyes are going to get their revenge, and that dish is going to be served plenty cold this weekend. All right, excited to welcome in rookie first-round draft pick, and here on behalf of Sharpie, Michael Penix Jr., the former Washington and Indiana great. We'll get to one of your alma maters here in a little bit, as there's been some excitement in a place that you know all too well. But good morning, man. How are you doing in the midst of a season right now that's still got plenty of promise for you guys in Atlanta?
Good morning. I'm doing great, man. Just learning, continue to grow each and every day. I'm just taking in all the information I can, from Kirk and the rest of the crew, and just making sure I stay ready for my moment. So.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we knew when you were drafted there that it would be a weight type of a moment, but personally, how difficult is that? I mean, you've been playing. I mean, this group of quarterbacks coming out of college, your group has a lot of playing experience in college, and now to sit and kind of wait your turn. How difficult has that been personally?
I wouldn't say it's difficult for me. I feel like it's a perspective, how you look at it. For me, I know I got time to learn, time to grow, continue to gain more knowledge in the game, and, adjust to the next level, and I feel like I've been doing a great job with that, and obviously having a veteran like Kirk, in front of me, somebody who's done it for, this is 13th year now, and still playing at a high level, just learning from him, just picking up some of the things that he's doing, to allow him to play at such a level, at year 13, I'm just continue to grow and, learn from that each and every day. So.
Yeah, a lot of people got a window inside Kirk's process when he was a part of that Netflix quarterback series. And I feel like so many people came away with maybe even more respect for a guy that they thought they knew a lot about. So I'm sure you, growing up and being around football, thought you knew a lot about Kirk Cousins. What is one big thing that you've learned from him so far, almost 3/4 of the way through the season?
It's obvious you can see it, but it's just his consistency. No matter how the game is going, he stays consistent. Throughout the game, make sure he goes up and down the bench, on the sideline to encourage the players. Let them know, just continue to play the next drive. One play at a time. And he does a great job of getting the team ready for games. Pregame. If it's either his speeches, his chants and stuff like that. So he does a great job with all of that. So.
What's been the biggest difference for you from college to the NFL, even though you haven't gotten into as a starting quarterback yet, but just some of the fundamental differences of college to the pro game?
Just the amount of time you have. You got so much time to perfect your craft. You don't got to worry about school. You don't have to worry about, all the other small meetings and stuff like that. It's all ball. So, I feel like, you just got to take advantage of that. And, for me, I had to learn, I got all this time. I got to figure out what to do with it, to make sure that, I'm using it the right way. And I'm still learning, but I've been doing pretty good. So.
Team-wide overall, obviously a tough last couple of games stretch here for you guys. Raheem Morris back in the saddle as a head coach. What has been your impression of him and the way that he leads this Atlanta Falcons team?
He comes with energy each and every day. He makes sure he gets the team going. Always has us ready each and every day. And man, his energy, his motivation. The way he leads the team. The way he speaks in front of us, and in team meetings. He just holds that presence. That he got that swagger to him, and he got all the confidence in the world in his team, and we got the same confidence in him as well. So.
I want to talk about one of your other coworkers here, a guy I feel like more and more people are getting to know this year in Zach Robinson, your guys' offensive coordinator, who comes from that McVay coaching tree here, getting the opportunity to be on the sticks now for the first time here. Former quarterback himself, a guy that played at a high level in college and the NFL. What has he really tried to hone in on with you guys in that quarterback room, especially at the helm of this offense for him?
Just leading and being consistent, always getting the offense going. That's what he always talked about, just starting fast, just making sure everybody execute at a high level, because at the end of the day, he always, like, the plays are the plays, we're the players, we got to go out there and make them. So, he just goes out there and he's free to call anything because he knows that, Kirk and the rest of the guys that's on the field at the time, they'll make a play. And, he does a great job of getting the ball in our playmakers' hands, based on scheming up those guys to get a ball or certain plays, stuff like that. So he's been doing a great job, and the whole team, the whole offense, we rally behind him. So.
How different, I talked about the difference of college to pro. How about the verbiage of the play? As a former defensive player, our calls were easy in college and in the NFL. My son Mike was a center, so a long call, part of it would be for the O-line, but the quarterback's got to know it all. Is the verbiage a lot more in the NFL?
Yeah, it is. It is definitely. But if you take some of our plays that I had in college, and the plays like we got now, it's some similar to like that length, but in college the difference was we signaled it. We didn't have to say it in the huddle. So that's the biggest difference, just repeating it, after you're hearing it, and processing it at the same time. So that's the biggest difference.
I want to go back to college a little bit with you here. I got a chance to cover you during your time at Washington. You were, a Heisman guy towards the end of your career there as well. But performance across two schools. So I'm curious now, so much of being in an NFL locker room is bragging about your colleges. Are you bragging on Indiana too? I mean, you spent, 4 years in Bloomington before you made your way to Washington. Do you kind of double dip in terms of the alma mater you boast for?
Man, I don't have no bad blood towards Indiana. That's what I always tell the guys. If I ever say anything about Indiana, they're like, "Oh, are you switching up?" I'm like, "Nah." Like, I just say I graduated from there. But all my guys at Washington, I'm definitely rooting for them always. So I don't think I know too many people left at Indiana, that I play with. I know it's an offensive lineman there and maybe a couple other guys, special teams players, but I don't really know anybody there at Indiana. So it's like for me, it's like Washington. It's like I know a lot of guys still, or kind of a lot of guys. A lot of guys left,
Yeah.
but so I definitely watch them each and every week. So.
It's what happens in the transfer portal era. You're right, is these rosters can change so much more quickly. I do want to ask you about, Kalen DeBoer is a guy that you did, spend all your time with at Washington. He was coordinator going back to IU. And now at Alabama, the first year, he's hitting some adversity here. Why do you think Kalen DeBoer is the right guy to weather the storm at what's going on in Alabama as someone who's worked as closely with him as you have?
And he thrives in adversity. He loves being an underdog, and he's a guy that's going to stay consistent each and every day. No matter win or loss, you still going to get the same person out of him, and he's gonna coach his heart out, and the rest of the staff there as well. I've been with some of those guys too, so I always be behind Coach DeBoer. No matter win, lose or draw. What he does, because he definitely helped change my life, and him believing in me, and also myself believing in him as well, and I got faith in him. So
how often do you, if at all, do you talk to Roma Dunze, your other first round teammate pick from Washington, now with the Bears?
I haven't talked to Rome in a while. We in a group chats together though, but so we talk throughout there. But I haven't called him in a while. I need to call him. I'm super excited for him, happy for him. I know he's probably freezing right now, so but I'm happy for him.
That is no doubt about it. Definitely very different weather groups that you guys got drafted into here, coming out in the draft here. And very cool situation you got coming up this weekend. We know everyone's familiar with the My Cleat, My Cause in the NFL, where players have a chance with the creativity of their cleats to go and shout out something that's near and dear to them. You're here on behalf of Sharpie today. So what do you guys have planned to go and showcase what you're trying to support here with My Cleats, My Cause?
Yeah, like you said, I partner with Sharpie for My Cleats, My Cause for this week. And actually the charitable, organization that I chose to go with is Boys and Girls of Club of America. And I actually had this 17-year-old Boys and Girls Club member, that created the cleat. Her name is Nicole, and she basically formed it around community, and did it in her little way. And she added a picture of me and my brothers on it, and with our names, and it got community across it. And it's actually a pretty nice cleat. I can't wait to wear it this week, and I'm super excited for it. Obviously I've been with Sharpie for a while, and they've been great to me, and I've been using Sharpie a lot. I got a lot of Sharpie pens, so it's been great.
Signing a lot of autographs, I'd imagine, with them.
A lot of autographs.
There you go. Well, we'd imagine that's going to keep up here plenty in the future, as we know you have a long and incredible career ahead of you, lining up here now, waiting for your turn. But when it comes, no doubt you're going to be ready just the way you are this weekend with the folks at Sharpie. So, Michael, we appreciate the time as always, man. Hopefully we'll get a chance to catch up with you soon. Stay healthy and good luck the rest of the season, all right?
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, let's finish off the show and Thanksgiving week the way that we always do with this, that, and the third. 3 quick stories to send you into the rest of the week. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review us. Leave us a 5-star rating and check us out here live Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings Network. Thank you to the over 1,000 people that have also subscribed to the GoJo and Golic YouTube channel. Keep going and hitting subscribe, smashing that bell so you know when we're ready to go live. If you miss us or any of our great guests, thank you to NBC Sports' Nicole Auerbach for stopping by and Atlanta Falcons rookie first-round pick Michael Penix Jr. You can catch those wherever you get our podcast or on the YouTube channel when we're done right here. As mentioned, we'll be off the next couple of days here. You'll be getting best of shows for GoJo and Golic, so no new shows coming up the next couple of days. We're going to go enjoy the Thanksgiving holiday with all of our families. We hope you do the same. We'll be back to break it all down and help digest, pun fully intended, next Monday, right on the dot for the holiday season. In the meantime, this segment, This, That, and the Third, is brought to you by our friends at Knockaround Sunglasses. Head to knockaround.com, use code GoJo Golic, and pick up your new go-to pair of polarized shades today. Dad is back in the mix. Jesse's looking phenomenal here. Mine are over on the other side of the room right now. I didn't get up to get them in time. Prior preparation, unfortunately, was not part of this, and now you're having poor performance from me. So don't be a fool like me, an idiot, without his sunglasses on, my naked eyes, taking in all these television lights here, and just getting baptized. Dad and Jesse are protected. They look great, and so you can be like them, going to knockaround.com and use promo code GoJo Golic, Dad.
I have to say, Jesse, you look really cool. You really do.
Yeah,
you look way cooler than me.
I feel cool, Senior.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Campiones are definitely the coolest version of this. And there are over 50 different frame types, plenty of things. So there's something for everybody as you get ready to look for maybe a little stocking stuffer this holiday season. So if you're going to hit the slopes, you can look like Jesse cruising down the mountain, getting ready to thwart Bruce Willis or some other movie hero that's trying to stop your master plan. So in the meantime, we'll move forward with This, That, and the Third. And start off with this one here. Wild stuff going on with Baker Mayfield and his family. Dad, Baker Mayfield suing his father's company, the NFL quarterback, alleging that he had $12 million stolen from him throughout this process. I'm just glad that at no point you've tried to steal any money from me, because forget suing you, I'd probably just punch you in the face.
Steal money from you? Well, I mean, there is stealing in the family. Your sister, my daughter, steals from me. I leave money on the counter, all of a sudden the money's gone. Now, not to the tune of $12 million. I mean, you know what they say when family intermingles in the money business, especially for large amounts of money, that sometimes nothing good can come from it. And it's always bad when one member of the family is suing another member of the family over money. That's never good. I just have, Sydney swiping 20s from me occasionally, so not reaching this level of lawsuit.
Yeah, Thanksgiving's about to be real awkward. But if I had to guess,
I was just going to say,
yeah, they're not spending
Thanksgiving. Is this the most
Thanksgiving
Thanksgiving headline possible? Like, listen, we hope everything is resolved and that not only Baker Mayfield gets money back if he believed it was wrongfully taken for his account for use in this business without his discretion, but we also hope that they can patch things up. But there is no doubt the tenor of this, Jesse's absolutely right. This is a uniquely Thanksgiving headline in terms of drama at the table amongst people that have very, maybe at this point, strained relationships.
Well, it really is when you're mixing and matching family and friends. Not there may be some within the group that have beef. And do you invite everybody? If you don't invite them, does it offend somebody else, or do you have to separate them at the meal? You can definitely get into tough situations at a Thanksgiving dinner.
It's kind of like a wedding where sometimes you've got to play careful games with the seating chart.
Yep.
Thanksgiving, a lot of the same here. Like, I don't know how everyone does it. A lot of places I've been, you just pick a plate and go pick a seat. But if you've got beef amongst and you're trying to keep the peace as the host, maybe you got to go name tags on there, get everyone in their assigned seat so that you don't have any funny business going on here. Speaking of funny business, Jesse, let's get to that. Bill Belichick making my father proud with his latest appearance on the Manning Cast.
Yeah, this was a seriously senior move because Bill gets caught on camera holding out his printed out Gmail piece of paper that says Manning Cast questions on it. So the man didn't even make a Word doc, okay? Like, did he send himself an email? I don't know what's going on here, but he printed this out, and this is, like we said, a move straight out of Senior's playbook. Look at him. He's so happy. He's like, ha-ha, yes, this is how you do it.
There is nothing like holding the printout of information in your hand, having it as substance in your hand and not having to go to a computer and try and find it in the computer. I will always print stuff out. I will always write stuff down because that helps me remembering things. You know this, Mike, in preparing for a game. Writing stuff down helps me remember the information, but I will print out. Like when I get sent the game releases, I print out those 40 or 50 pages of game release. I highlight the game release, and then I make notes off the game release. Is it extra work? Maybe, but it helps me remember and prepare for information for a show. Like I printed out the stuff for the show this morning. Not the rundown anymore, but some odds and ends from the show. I print out to have in front of me. There's something about the security of having the substance in my hands.
We also
you
saw
like having the substance in your hand because you don't know how to navigate your computer.
Right, but we also
That
saw
too.
what Bill did to those Windows Surfaces on his time on the sideline. So, I mean, he smashed a couple of those. Perhaps this is for the best.
Well, I'm not going to lie. That's my fear, Mike. I mean, having everything in the computer. And I mean, when I did games with Mike Tirico at ESPN, I was feverishly writing things down. He was just calmly putting it all in the computer and just pulls it up in the computer during the game and is like nothing. That's my fear. Is it's in the computer and me not being able to find the files in the computer. That's my biggest fear. How do I get to it? Do I accidentally erase it? Am I not going to get to it? Do I need a password to get to it? I don't want to deal with all that, so I just friggin' print it out. Get off my back.
I'm honestly, that was an unintentional Zoolander moment, which was hysterical. The files are inside the computer.
Thank you.
But also,
Yes.
I get it. I mean, I totally understand. If this computer died right now, I would just leave because I don't know what's next, what we're talking about. So I get it, Senior. I get it.
It is unbelievable. And Jesse, I laughed a little bit inside when you said, did Bill email that to himself? If Bill Belichick is anything like my father, the notion of emailing something to himself or anyone else, even that is a foreign enough concept. It has got to be fed right to him there, put right in front of him, and you've got to get him right when he's looking at it. Because if you send an email to my dad and it's even an hour before he looked at his phone, it might as well have been erased for him. It's gone if it's down past the first page of the line items in his email.
I did just figure out the search thing for the emails, that I can find them by searching them. What a revelation.
Wow.
Coming up next, Google for Dummies from Nicole Auerbach's bookshelf. Let's finish this off with the third, Jesse. Kendrick Lamar. My dad actually said something up to date on pop culture during the break that excited our staff, and it has to do with a viral post from the Inglewood women's high school basketball team.
Yeah, I mean, you should probably take this one because honestly, reading this, I had no idea what we're talking about. Kendrick Lamar released...
No, go ahead, Jesse. Just read the headline here so you can see if other people have this sound like a Mad Lib to them too.
So the headline here is California high school girls basketball team goes viral to Kendrick Lamar's TV Off. They went viral dancing to his latest hit amid the popular mustard meme. What?
Well, I mean, listen, this is an easy one. DJ Mustard produced the video and the song TV Off, and Kendrick Lamar screamed mustard during the video, during the song. And that there's a meme out of the girls, the high school girls dancing to the song. Is that pretty much it?
Okay, and this is viral.
So the explanation for the DJ Mustard shout out on the track is absolutely spot on. Yeah, job well done there. The reason this went viral is because what appears to be a probably my age white gentleman who I think is some sort of coach of the team, again, it's the Inglewood Sentinels high school women's basketball team, gets in there and absolutely goes crazy in the middle of that with moves that he no doubt picked up during the early 2000s. I recognize a lot of that stuff. And so the brands have gotten in on this. Everyone is. And so it's no surprise that we're going to come in here and try and swoop in on the culture as well. If you understood any of that, download, subscribe, rate, and review, and let us know. Leave us a 5-star rating. Have a great Thanksgiving weekend. Travel safe. Be safe. We love you, and we'll talk to you Monday.